Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you all can hear me, inshallah ta'ala. We will just begin in a few minutes. Jazakumullah khairan for those who are here on time.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the last two sessions, we were discussing the first poison to the heart. The reason why we have to speak of the poisons to the heart before we speak of the goodness to add to the heart, to purify the heart, to beautify the heart, to make the heart strong, steadfast, and sound, is because, as I mentioned at least a couple of times before, we cannot keep on adding to our knowledge if we do not remove the dirt from within us so that we can benefit from the knowledge. Because on the day of judgment, we're not going to be asked how much knowledge we had, what knowledge we had, or what we did with it. We will be only asked, what did you do? What did you do with it? And a lot of times we are listening to so many lectures, reading books and articles, talking about it, even preaching. But we become desensitized to the knowledge, immune to the beauty and benefit of it. And it's not because necessarily we are always insincere, though sometimes we do mess up in our intentions. But even if we truly desire, even if partially desire, or want to have the desire to do well in the sight of Allah, sometimes it is just that our hearts are overwhelmed. Our hearts are full. So until we ensure to make space in our hearts for the goodness to enter it, until we ensure that the content of the heart is not already dirty or full with what is not beneficial, then either whatever goodness we try to pour into the heart, either it will spill out or mix with the dirt in the heart. So in order to make sure that we know what can make the content of the heart dirty, what can cause impurity of the heart, what can weaken the heart, corrupt the heart, hence we have to speak of the poisons of the heart. The first poison that we spoke about was unnecessary speech. Too much and unnecessary speech. Then today, inshallah ta'ala, we will speak about another, what we consider very insignificant matter, but a fatal poison of the heart, a poison that can kill the iman, the effect of the ilm, the benefit, the virtue of the amal of the person who carries this heart. And the second poison is unrestrained glances. Unrestrained glances. When you glance at what you're not supposed to look at, when you look at what you are attracted to, and the image is imprinted on your heart, but not in a good way. When what you had looked at that has left a print on your heart, instead of bringing it closer to its creator, the creator of the heart, it takes this heart away from the creator, causing distraction. Distraction from La ilaha illallah. Shaitan enters with the glance, as some of the Salaf said. Shaitan enters with the glance, for he travels with it faster than the wind blowing through an empty place. He makes what is seen appear more beautiful than it really is, transforming it into an idol for the heart to worship. Then he promises through this idol that it has created for the heart through the forbidden glance. It promises it false hopes, expectations, rewards, success, lights the fire of desires within this heart, the fuel being the wood of forbidden actions. And the slave then ends up committing what it would not have ever committed had it not had that forbidden glance in the first place. This is the summary of what the Salaf say. For instance, what Ibn Qayyim rahimullah said, Ibn Rajab rahimullah said about what shaitan does with the forbidden glance of the humans. But the question is, what does Allah say? Where is it written that you're not supposed to look at certain things? Where is it written in the Quran? Where? Well, as Islam is a complete code of life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has even spoken about the forbidden glands in the Quran. And the tafsir of these ayat, because we don't have time for it, so I'm just going to mention the ayah and a reflection on it, as was reflected by the Salaf, the first 3 generations of Muslims. I'm just going to give one example, actually, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only mentions the forbidden glands, but also the side effect of it to the heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Kahf, for instance, the 18th surah, وَلَا تَعْدُ أَيْنَاكَ أَنْهُمْ تُرِيدُ زِينَةُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. And let not your eyes pass beyond them, desiring adornments of the worldly life. Beyond what? In the same ayah, 28th ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned before this prohibition, this warning, before admonishing us to restrain our sight and not to look beyond what is permissible of the dunya. Before that, he said, and keep yourself patient. وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ. And keep yourself patient with those who call upon their Rabb in the morning and the evening. And by being with those who call upon Allah. Be patient and be around, have the company of those who call upon Allah in the morning and evening, seeking His face, seeking His pleasure, His acceptance. If you have such a company, if you choose, even if just one person in your life who is often found remembering Allah, talking about Allah, reminding of Allah, sharing the warnings of Allah and the hopes from Allah, guidance of Allah, morning and evening. These people who seek the pleasure of Allah, acceptance from Him. If you restrict yourself to such a company, even if it's just one person, it'll help you. And let not your eyes pass beyond them, because their company may help you restrain yourself too. For these people who are able to restrain themselves, when you stay around these people who are not desensitized to disobedience of Allah, who are not immune to transgression against the laws of Allah, then you won't become immune to it either. Otherwise, the beauty of dunya, the illusion, the delusion of dunya, the adornments of dunya, the worldly life, can do just the opposite if you don't protect your company, protecting your sight. But what if you don't? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions 3 problems, 3 causes, 3 adverse effects of those who do not restrain their sight. In the same ayah, in Surah Al-Kahf, He says, number 1, وَلَا تُطِعْ مَنْ أَغْفَلْنَا قَلْبَهُ عَنْ ذِكْرِنَا. And do not obey one whose heart we have made heedless of our remembrance. So see, first He told us to be around those, be in the company of those. Now, if you say that, we may not have such a company, we don't maybe have such an environment where morning, evening, Allah is remembered, Allah is thanked, Allah's, refuge is sought, His pardon is sought, then what? One of the greatest advice I received from one of my teachers was, rahimullah, that if you do not have a good company, make the biographies of those before you your company. If you do not have a righteous company, a good environment, make company the books written by those before you. The biographies of the Salaf, starting from the Seerah of Rasulullah, Sahaba, Sahabiyah, Tabi'een, Tabi'een, even the biographies, the stories of the prophets, the messengers of Allah, keeping them your company by reading, listening, talking about it, it becomes your company. So we have no excuse today because we have so much access to all this material, all this knowledge. We don't have to travel anywhere to gain this knowledge. We don't have to bear any extreme weather, hunger, thirst, fear in order to gain this knowledge. From the comfort of not only our homes but our beds, with the knowledge in our hands, in the form of these gadgets. So if you keep them or the books, it's better to have the hard copy with you. You can read it without any unnecessary screen time, which is extra burden on the site. Make them your company. But the beautiful thing is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first mentions to make sure that you keep such a company. Those who seek the face of Allah, yani His pleasure, remembering Him, thanking Him, glorifying Him, seeking His pardon and refuge and protection, morning and evening, calling towards Him. But if you don't, yani, if you end up obeying the one whose heart we have made heedless of our remembrance, yani, if you remain around those people who hardly talk about Allah, they don't thank and praise and glorify Allah, proclaim His greatness, talking about the beauty of what He has created, then what will happen? One, He's already mentioned. The adornments of the worldly life will become desirable for you. Okay? You will be attracted to dunya. You'll be attracted to the matters of this world. Number two, He mentions then, وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ, يعني, and follows his desires. Such people who follow their own desires. So if you remain around them who have no restraint on their desires, you may end up being like that. If someone asks you, why did you say that? You shouldn't be saying that. Or why did you do this? You shouldn't be doing it. You're like, I don't know, I just felt like it. You know how one of those people? I just felt like it. They have no control, no reign over this wild horse called the nafs. And the third thing, after he mentions وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ, يعني, who follow their desires, he says وَكَانَ أَمْرُهُ فُرُوطًا, and whose affair is ever in neglect. These people whose sight has gone beyond what Allah has permitted, they end up desiring those things. They end up having weak nafs. weak control on their desires. It's not that they don't know what's right or wrong necessarily. They just don't have control. I just can't do it. I just can't control it. I just can't do what Allah has commanded or what is pleasing to Him. I just can't stop what Allah has forbidden, what is displeasing to Him. So why is that some people have that control within them and some don't? Because the sins of the physical faculties leads to the weakness of the heart. The eyes have a direct connection with the heart. Direct connection with the heart. Immediate connection. If the eyes are corrupted, the heart follows. If the eyes have taqwa, the heart follows. So there are three afflictions on the heart of a person who do not restrain their sight, do not think of Allah, Al-Basir, who sees everything. That even if no one sees what I see in the privacy, Al-Basir sees everything, for He's all-seeing. You have to remember every human is born in the innate nature, the fitrah, of submission to Allah. But what a child is exposed to, what their eyes and their ears and the environment, whatever they're made vulnerable to, exposed to, the qareen shaitan with that child is also exposed to it. And if that qareen shaitan is by nature shaitan, and then exposed to things which are forbidden by Allah, from a very young age, the child's heart gets corrupted. At that time, we don't care what it sees, what he or she, the child sees or hears, what their company is. But when they grow up, then we freak out as if it wasn't foreseeable. Now, the qareen shaitan, the companion evil jinn that we all have from cradle to grave, has already taken a grip on that person from childhood. He knows the weakness of the child or this person since he was born. Imagine if somebody's been with you from cradle to grave, subhanAllah, wouldn't he know everything about you? But he only sees and hears what you allow it to see and hear by exposing your sight and hearing to it. So imagine by seeing things which are not allowed by Allah, not permissible, not only are you weakening your nafs, but you're giving power over your nafs to the qareen shaitan, the companion devil that we all have as a test for us in dunya. If it only sees what is pleasing to Allah, it restrains its sight. If this heart only allows the ears and the sight to hear and see what is pleasing to Allah, the qareen jinn, the devil that we have, the companion from cradle to grave, doesn't have a choice but to be exposed to it too. So it's up to you whether you give it your power, your strength, to power over you, your nafs, or to weaken it. Keep it under control. Do da'wah to it. That yes, I am in my privacy, but I still can restrain my sight and my hearing. I'm not going to expose my sight and hearing to anything displeasing to Allah, even if no one else hears or sees. As-Sami al-Basir sees and hears everything. I'm going to protect my nafs, and I'm going to also protect myself from giving strength to you over me and over my soul. The last thing I want to mention, even though we also know in Surah An-Nur, one of the first things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, even when talking about the morality, the decency of both men and women, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions men first in the 30th ayah of Surah An-Nur, and then tells women in 31 ayah. For instance, when it says, قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ, tell the believing men to lower their gaze. Then he says in the 31 ayah, وَقُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنَاتِ يَغْضُضْنَ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِنْ, and tell the believing women to lower their gaze. So it is upon us to lower our gaze, no matter what is before us. We can't say, oh, who told them to come in front of us, or this or that. I mean, we're not going to be accountable for anyone else but our own selves. To protect our own hearts, this is our responsibility, individual responsibility. If you let the gaze of yours roam around, it will put a cloak on your heart with its darkness when it's exposed to darkness. But if you lower your gaze from what is displeasing to Allah, Allah will clothe it in light, put light within it. And when the heart is a light, it attracts light and it gives away light. It sees light even in the most pitch black darkness. But if the heart is dark, because of what the eyes has been exposed to constantly without any restraint, then the clouds of evil and afflictions are attracted to it from all around. And even in the lightest of light, it cannot see. It is like it has the eyes but no sight. So if you let the gaze of yours run loose, because of that, it can even confuse you between haqq and batil, truth and falsehood. It can even make you weak in implementation of what you recognize to be the truth. So it is up to you what you do with your sight, for it's at your mercy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned much about the benefit of restraining our sight, but because we don't have time, I cannot go into it. The only thing I want to mention at the end, before I answer a couple of questions here, inshallah, is what the Salaf said as a conclusion, considering all the ayat and ahadith concerning the restraining of the sight. One of these statements, a very famous statement, is this. It is said that whoever enriches his outward behavior by following the Sunnah and makes his inward soul wealthy through contemplation and stays away from or protects their sight from looking at what is forbidden, avoids anything of a doubtful nature, and in addition to it, feeds solely on what is halal, what is permissible. This person, who follows the Sunnah, number one, thinks about, reflects over of the knowledge of the Quran and Sunnah, protects their sight from what is forbidden, avoids anything which is doubtful, and lastly, only feeds on what is halal, earns and eats halal. His inner sight will never, ever be in error. His inner sight will always be protected. And Allah is the one who will protect, placing sight of the heart, not only sight of the eyes. Jazakumullah khairan. Those of you who want to leave may leave. I'm going to answer some of the questions here, inshallah, quickly, and then end the session. There's a question. Such people who are so immune to unnecessary glances, can't control their eyes and don't think it's bad, how could we make them feel conscious? First of all, we can't do this for anyone else. We can only do it for ourselves. We can make dua for others, but we can't do this for anyone else, only for our own selves. We cannot protect the sight, the hearing of another unless it's a child at our mercy. So one of the greatest things to do is to be an example, to lead by example. Yani, if you truly want somebody around you to not expose their sight or hearing to things forbidden by Allah, then you need to lead by example. When you underestimate your own example, your own implementation, your own obedience to Allah as the greatest form of da'wah, most effective form of da'wah, if you underestimate it, then remember that this is one of the greatest tricks of shaitan. He makes us feel that we have to always preach by speech, do da'wah only by preaching. Sometimes, in fact, most of the time when it comes to those around us in our families, friends, people we work with or study with, those people who know us, especially our family, relatives, those who've known us always, are good and bad. If you truly want to do da'wah to them, calling them towards the deen, you have to show them by your actions and your example how the deen has changed you. If you want them to change towards the deen, you have to show them how the deen has changed you. And you never know the kind of impact your example can have, the impact your example can have, your practical live example before them, what impact that can have on them. It's subtle, but it's one of the most effective. So do not underestimate it. Another question is, if we are looking for someone and look at someone non-mahram, if we are looking for someone and look at someone non-mahram, then look down, is it sinful? Okay. If you mean that if you had looked at someone, like the first glance, by mistake or whatsoever, and then you look away, that's okay. As long as you don't, elongate your first glance, it's okay. By mistake, if it happened, just don't keep on looking and don't give it another look. Okay, unless it's someone that a person is considering for marriage, and that should happen around the family members, especially the mahram of the female. The examples of unnecessary gaze I'm giving tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala. Those who have had bad company in the past and have left it, but their hearts are still under influence, there's specific dua they can say. Yes, okay. A very good question. After we speak of what can adversely affect the heart, the poisons to the heart in, this week, the next week, inshallah ta'ala, we will speak of how to purify the heart, how to empty this glass with dirty water and rinse it. And then in Ramadan, from some of the portions of the Quran, their tafsir, we will find out how to add the goodness, to the goodness of the heart, how to strengthen it, how to beautify it, how to stabilize it, how to cause its soundness, how to cause the soundness of the heart, basically, how to attain qalbu salim. So that will be in Ramadan, inshallah. That will include tafsir of some portions of the Quran. So this week I'm covering the poisons of the heart that we started from last week. And next week, inshallah ta'ala, if we already have taken in the poison, now how to get rid of it, that we'll cover next week, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, is that it? Any more questions? Okay, alhamdulillah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of our sights from whatever is displeasing to Him. Pardon us for whatever we have exposed our sight to, and also to give us refuge from whatever is displeasing to Him. Inshallah ta'ala. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.